All right, let's dive deep into some Kant today.
Hmm.
His critique of pure reason. It's a bit of a philosophical heavyweight, right?
Yeah.
But is it like the guide to understanding ourselves or just some crazy mental gymnastics?
Well, Kant was wrestling with that whole question of how we even make sense of the world.
Okay, yeah.
And his big idea was that it's not just about what we experience, like what we see and hear and all that,
Hmm.
but also about the structures of reason that we already have in our minds.
So like our brains are already kind of wired in a certain way even before we actually encounter the world?
Exactly. He called this pre-existing knowledge a priori. Think of it like this, imagine a triangle.
Okay.
You just know it has three sides, right? Even before you see a specific triangle. Like, you just get it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
that's a priori knowledge for Kant.
Okay. I think I'm with you so far.
Yeah.
But every great thinker needs a good challenge. So let's bring in Socrates, the OG philosopher.
All right, bring on Socrates. He was all about questioning everything and finding wisdom in real life. So how do you think he'd react to Kant's whole reason versus experience thing?
I think Socrates might push back a bit on that sharp division. He'd probably say true understanding comes from examining life itself,
Oh, interesting.
from our interactions, what we go through, not just from thinking in the abstract.
So it's a real philosophical smackdown brewing here.
Yeah.
Experience versus pure reason. And hey, since we're already down this rabbit hole, why not bring in a modern voice? Like imagine Joe Rogan weighing in on this.
Joe Rogan. Now that's a twist I didn't see coming.
Right. I can totally picture him in his studio pondering Kant's categorical imperative.
Mm-hmm.
Probably wondering if it's just a fancy way of saying, be cool, man.
Maybe. But it does touch on something important. That categorical imperative is Kant's idea of a universal moral law. It's about acting in a way that you could rationally want everyone else to act,
So not that far off from be cool, man, after all. Like, both are about taking responsibility for your actions and how they affect others.
I think there's a connection there for sure.
But, okay, what happens when we throw someone like Kanye West into this philosophical mix? Things are going to get interesting.
Oh, this I gotta hear.
Picture Kanye, right? And he's like, yo, I'm the living embodiment of Kant's genius.
Well, Kant did define genius as the ability to create original work, stuff that can't be taught.
Yeah.
And you gotta admit, Kanye's got that innovative spirit, that self-belief that kind of fits.
Yeah, no doubt. But something tells me another philosophical giant might have some thoughts on this. I'm talking about Nietzsche.
Ah, Nietzsche. Always ready to shake things up.
What?
What do you think his take would be?
He'd be like, Kant, man, why trying to tame the chaos of life with all these rules? Like, he'd be all about embracing the unpredictable.
Absolutely. Nietzsche was all about individual will, accepting life's uncertainties, which goes totally against Kant's emphasis on universal laws and the power of reason.
So we've got this clash of the titans. Socrates grounding us in experience, Rogan seeking practical wisdom, Kanye is the creative genius, and Nietzsche urging us to embrace the chaos. Sounds like Kant's critique of pure reason might not have all the answers, but it definitely sparks some wild conversations.
It's what makes philosophy so engaging, right? It forces us to confront those big questions about how we understand ourselves and the world.
For sure. And we're just getting started with this deep dive. Let's see where else this exploration of Kant takes us.
It's kind of wild how Kant just went straight for those massive philosophical questions,
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't afraid to tackle metaphysics, the nature of reality, knowledge, all that. Even the concept of a necessary being, like the ultimate source of existence.
It's true. He didn't shy away from the big stuff. But how did he approach something like proving the existence of God? That's a huge one.
Right. Well, that's where his transcendental arguments come into play. He was really grappling with that idea. Could you prove God's existence through pure reason? But in the end, he concluded that it was beyond what reason alone could do. Like, you couldn't definitively prove or disprove it.
So even Kant, the master of reason, was saying reason has its limits.
Exactly. Especially when you're talking about something as profound as God.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
But if reason can't give us all the answers, what did Kant think we should do? Like, how do we approach those ultimate questions about existence, purpose, morality, all that?
Well, he had this concept of regulative ideas.
Okay.
He argued that even though we can't fully know these ultimate truths, ideas like God, freedom, immortality, they act as guiding principles for how we think and act.
So they're kind of like guiding stars.
Yeah, I like that. They provide a framework for finding meaning and purpose, even when things feel uncertain.
This is making me think about how much we rely on just logic and reason in our lives.
Hmm.
Maybe Kant saying we should consider other ways of knowing too,
Right.
like intuition, emotions, personal experience, stuff like that.
That's a great point. Kant's work might be centered on reason, but it definitely opens up these questions about all the different ways we engage with the world.
It's like he's saying understanding ourselves and the universe is a complex journey, and it's okay to embrace that,
I think that's a really important takeaway.
for sure. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about another key concept in Kant's moral philosophy,
Okay.
duty. I gotta say, that idea always seemed a bit rigid to me, like just following rules blindly.
It's interesting that you say that because for Kant, duty is actually deeply connected to freedom.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
He argues that true freedom comes not from just doing whatever we want, but from acting in accordance with moral law.
Hmm.
And we discover that moral law through reason.
So it's not about blind obedience to some external set of rules.
Right.
It's about choosing to align ourselves with a universal moral code that we
Exactly.
figure out through reason. Okay, I'm starting to see how duty and freedom can actually go hand in hand in Kant's thinking.
Hmm.
It's like by choosing to act ethically, we're actually expressing our freedom as rational beings.
That's a great way to put it.
But how does this idea of duty play out in how we interact with others?
Well, Kant puts a lot of emphasis on treating every individual as an end in themselves,
Okay.
never merely as a means to an end.
So it's about recognizing everyone's inherent dignity and worth,
Yes.
no matter their social status, their usefulness, or anything like that.
Exactly. And that has huge implications for things like social justice, human rights, our responsibility to care for others.
It makes you think about all the times we dehumanize people or exploit them for our own gain.
It's true.
Kant's philosophy is a powerful reminder that we have an obligation to treat everyone with respect,
Hmm.
regardless of who they are or what they can do for us.
Absolutely. It challenges us to look beyond self-interest and think about the moral impact of our actions on a larger scale.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. It's amazing how a book written centuries ago can still be so relevant today.
It really is. And it shows how philosophy can make us think critically about ourselves and our place in the world.
So is Critique of Pure Reason the ultimate guide to human understanding? Maybe there's no simple answer to that,
Right.
but it definitely makes us think, makes us question our assumptions, and encourages us to really examine ourselves and the world around us.
And isn't that what it's all about? To stay curious, to challenge ourselves, and keep searching for deeper understanding.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This whole idea of duty and treating people as ends in themselves, it really makes you think about the kind of world we're building.
Yeah, it really challenges us to think about the impact of our choices.
It's like Kant saying, hey, your actions matter and they affect everyone around you. It's a lot of responsibility, but it's also kind of empowering in a way.
Definitely. And that sense of responsibility goes back to Kant's belief in the power of reason, He believed that we have the ability to understand moral principles to make good choices that make the world a better place.
It's almost like he had this really optimistic view of humanity's potential for goodness.
Mhm.
But what about people who say morality is subjective? That there are no universal truths. How would Kant address that?
That's a good question. I think Kant would say that even if people don't agree on specific moral rules, there's still this underlying principle, the categorical imperative, remember. Acting in a way that you could rationally want everyone to act that gives us a solid foundation for making ethical decisions.
So it's about finding that common ground, right?
Yeah.
That shared understanding of what it means to treat each other with respect and dignity.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all human and acting in ways that uphold the worth of every person.
This deep dive into Kant has been such a trip. We've talked about reason, experience, morality, even the limits of human understanding. It's amazing how these ideas from centuries ago are still so relevant today.
It's true. It shows how philosophy can really make us think critically about ourselves and our place in the world.
So is Critique of Pure Reason the ultimate guide to human understanding? Maybe not. But it definitely gets us thinking, questioning our assumptions, and pushing us to understand ourselves and the world better.
And that's a pretty valuable thing, right? To engage in these reflections, to question, to explore, to keep searching for a deeper understanding.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this philosophical adventure into the world of Immanuel Kant.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've learned something new and that you'll continue your own philosophical journey. And to all our listeners out there, keep those minds open and those questions coming. Until next time, keep diving deep.